management, as trying to remove obstacles so that people like Kenny can do their job better, right? It's like when the photographers say, it takes too long to feed using this, or I can't get somebody on the phone when I need them, or whatever. That's kind of what management is, right? Is like figuring out how to solve that problem so that the people who are doing the work can do their work better. And I really believe that, especially in our business, I mean, these jobs are too hard, okay? I mean, you're doing these jobs because you love it. It's a calling. You can't do it if you just think, and those people get weeded out so fast, people who just they just want to be on TV. They're not really into journalism, right? And they get weeded out because it's too hard. I mean, there's too much work to be on TV in local TV journalism now. The things we expect everyone to do, you don't forget to take a photo when you get there, tweet it, post it to Facebook, write a web article. Oh, by the way, don't miss anything while you're at it. Shoot it, write it, edit it in the field, and feed it back, and move on to the next thing. Okay, and be accurate, and be entertaining, and I mean, we really expect a lot, and I know everyone who works for me is working hard. Everybody, there's nobody goofing off down there. It's impossible. Like, what other job do you have where every day, especially in local TV, I'm talking about local TV journalism, it's maybe a little bit different in print, but not much anymore, where your work product, I mean, what other job where what you did, your thing is on TV for everyone to see every day? It's like, when I send Kenny out, I don't worry about is he actually working, because I can turn on the news at 11, and if he's not, it'll show up. Right? It's like you can't just go to a bar and drink and then come back and say you did your job, maybe the DPW guys are supposed to be out raking leaves and they're not, okay?
It's so nice that you recognize that, because sometimes my photographer, when the desk comes, well, what are you guys doing? Well, we're not, like you said, what, you think we're at a bar?
I'm eating bonbons.
We're doing shots right now.
Right. And I do think, sometimes the desk people maybe need to go out with the crew, and sometimes the crew people need to sit on the desk. It's like the desk people are how many times is someone going to call me and ask me for the phone number for the PIO for the DC Police Department? It's not like we never make that phone call. It's like, feel free to put it in your phone,
Fair enough.
So, yeah, look, but everybody's trying hard, sometimes not efficiently, sometimes they're not communicating well. And that is the number one thing. I mean, communication. That's where everything breaks down. Election night or day to day, I'm just amazed at the knucklehead stuff that goes on when I see something on TV, and I'm just like, how did that happen? And you go out and it's like, well, I told her that, and she thought I meant this, and then she told the editor that, and you're just like... I'm sorry, you were going to ask a question. I interrupted you.
No. Mm-mm.
I was.
He was.
Unless it's somebody else.
Okay.
It's my time to grill my host. No, you know what? I've always been curious to hear different managers' perspective on just the declining resources in newsrooms, and just some of the I mean, it must be hard to continue to put on a decent product when staff is being scaled back, and when everything's sort of being cut. You've been around for a long time, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of it. I bet your job was probably easier, 10, 15 years ago than it is today.
I've been in the business for 35 years. I don't think I've ever worked harder.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever been more dedicated. I believe, our business is in a crisis right now. What's happening is, and this has happened in every medium, especially, but I'm talking here about our medium of television, which is no longer just television, which is part of the problem. But as the pie is getting cut and cut and cut and cut and cut, we used to be, let's face it, we were a monopoly. There used to be, when I started this business, there were 3 stations in town that did news. That's it's an oligopoly, whatever you want to call it, right? 3 stations. I mean, so if you stunk, you got 20% of the audience, and if you were great, you got 35% of the audience, okay? That's a business. So, our pie is getting cut up, and because of the internet and social media, people are stealing our information, right? So we go to the fire, we pay the reporter to go to the fire, and then someone else tweets it out, or repeats it, and sometimes without even referencing us, but even if they do reference us, and you get that information from Twitter or from someone's Facebook page or even from our website, in a lot of ways, we're not getting paid as much for that. Not as much as what we get paid when you get it on television and there's a 30-second spot running in it. That's still the, that's still the mother lode. And, and that's what's killing newspapers. I mean, people aren't paying, they're getting it free online. It's like, why do you buy the cow when you get the milk for free? And so the quality of journalism and let's face it, it has always been driven by print, okay? The Washington Post breaks more stories than any television station in town. It's starting to change because they have less resources, fewer resources. The New York Times breaks more stories. The big publications do the really, we don't send anyone to Iraq. They send someone to Iraq. And that kind of journalism is dying. People aren't paying for it anymore. And that's really scary. And we need to find a revenue stream for that. And you see things like, ProPublica and these nonprofits, and that's great. But I don't know, the economic model hasn't been finished. Gannett is the nation's largest owner of newspapers. And so we are experiencing, I see it in, my meetings that I go to, and I see the, panic in the eyes of the newspaper people and all these things that we're doing with USA Today. I mean, they're going to video. They're training their people to shoot video because now it's not just enough to have the information, you also have to have visuals online, right? Because now you can stream video on your phone, whereas before you could just get text. And so, how are we going to work with them? One of the things I'm proud of about working at Gannett is our CEO, our new CEO, Garcia, which I'm also excited to be. My wife is very excited that I'm working for a woman now. Said, we figured out who we are. We're the world's largest local journalism company. It's kind of cool. And she said, your job is to do journalism that makes where you live a better place. It's like, yeah, I want to work there. I'll do that. That's great. But then, oh, by the way, still do the 5.5 hours a day of news and make it compelling and get good ratings at a time when all of our audiences are dwindling and being parsed a million ways. And trying to grow digital audience over here, right? You're trying to make your website stronger and your mobile site stronger and engage people in social media and try to make it all work and hoping that some of this stuff over here is going to make up for the losses in our, what used to be the mother lode, which is being on TV. And I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I felt like, when I left San Diego, I thought about getting out of the business, and I thought kind of like, I don't know if any of you guys ever saw the movie Patton. It's about the famous general, and at one point, he slapped a soldier and disgraced himself, and World War II is raging, and he says, I've trained my whole life for this moment. The entire world is at war, and I'm like on the sidelines. Like, how did that happen? And I kind of thought it that way. It's like I've devoted 30 years of my life to this business and what we do, and I believe in it. I believe in the First Amendment. I believe what we do is important to society. And I got into it for altruistic reasons. My wife and I thought it was going to be like being a teacher, right, where you did good things and didn't make that much money. And I make a really good living at it. I mean, I've been very blessed, as I've gone up the food chain and gotten promoted beyond my level of competence. I've made a good living. And I think that's because I like what I do, and I think that's true about anything. I think if you really love it and are doing it, because if I left here tomorrow, I would, and I never cared. Like, I worked in print, and had that worked out, I probably would have stayed in print. I did radio, and if that had worked out, I didn't care as long as it was journalism. I didn't care what platform it was on. I'd be perfectly happy writing for the Huffington Post or something as producing television, but mostly what I've done is television, so that's where my skill sets lie. So I don't have any great answers, and if I did, I would probably be like president of Gannett.